Think for a moment about those times you've been listening to something. Maybe it's a dense lecture, a new deep dive like this one, or even just trying to follow a fast-paced movie, and you feel like you're constantly missing pieces. It's like the
Mm.
meaning is just, out of reach, sort of slipping away.
Yeah, that's a feeling I think a lot of English learners and honestly even native speakers sometimes can relate to. And often that persistent feeling boils down to one key thing: vocabulary.
Right.
It's the bricks and mortar of comprehension, really, and it's exactly what we're diving deep into today.
That's right. We've been exploring a really insightful guide focused on vocabulary expansion, specifically for listening. Now, while it uses the IELTS test as a framework to illustrate increasing difficulty,
Hmm.
don't let that fool you.
Yeah, definitely not.
The insights packed into this guide are incredibly relevant for anyone who wants to boost their ability to understand spoken English more effectively.
Absolutely. Consider this our focused exploration into how you can build a stronger vocabulary specifically to unlock better listening comprehension. Our mission in this deep dive is to equip you with actionable strategies and introduce you to key vocabulary areas,
Yeah.
things that will genuinely make understanding spoken information clearer and hopefully give you a real sense of confidence every time you listen.
And it really is so fundamental, isn't it? If you're trying to learn or master any subject through listening, be it, complex instructions, engaging with audiobooks, or even just participating fully in a fluid conversation, a robust vocabulary is the bedrock.
It truly is. Without that strong foundation, even the most grammatically perfect sentence can become, well, a bit of a riddle.
Okay, let's unpack that. When we talk about vocabulary's central role in listening, it's not just about knowing isolated definitions, is it? I always thought of vocabulary as just like a static list of words. How does it become active in the listening process?
That's a great question because it is much more active than simply knowing a word's dictionary meaning. In listening, your brain is doing so much more than just identifying individual words. You need a good command of vocabulary to accurately follow instructions, to understand the logical progression of arguments, and crucially, to recognize when someone is paraphrasing, saying the same idea in entirely different words.
That paraphrasing point is a huge one. It's not just about hearing the exact word,
Right.
but the idea behind it, yeah.
Precisely. And ultimately, it's about grasping the core message and being able to respond accurately. And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The guide makes a compelling point that a limited vocabulary is often the biggest barrier to comprehension,
Really?
sometimes even more so than grammar.
That's quite a revelation.
Hmm?
I'd always assumed grammar was the ultimate gatekeeper.
Yeah.
So you might understand sentence structure, you might know all the rules of tense and agreement, but if the actual key words being used are unfamiliar, the overall meaning can just, well, completely slip away.
That's a powerful analogy. Think of it like this. You might have the perfect grammatical scaffolding ready, a solid framework for your building.
Right.
But if you're missing the crucial vocabulary bricks, you simply can't fill in the walls. The structure is there, but the full picture, the actual meaning of what's being conveyed, remains incomplete for you.
Okay, so to help illustrate the kind of escalating challenges you might face in spoken English, the guide uses the IELTS listening test structure
Yeah.
as a really useful framework.
Yeah, it works well for that.
And even if you're not taking the test, it perfectly mirrors how listening demands can become increasingly complex in real life, right?
It really does. What's fascinating is how it progresses through 4 distinct sections, each building on the last, testing different aspects of comprehension, and introducing increasingly intricate vocabulary as it goes.
Okay, walk us through that progression briefly. How does the language shift?
Sure. So section 1 is typically a social conversation, everyday stuff like 2 people booking tickets or maybe arranging an appointment. The language is generally quite straightforward there.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
And then it ramps up, right?
Exactly. Section 2 is often a social monologue, perhaps someone describing local facilities or giving general information about an event. Still fairly accessible, but, moving beyond direct back and forth conversation.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah.
But then section 3 moves into an academic or training-focused conversation, often multiple speakers discussing a specific topic, like students planning a project or something.
Getting trickier there.
Definitely.
And the final section, section 4, that's typically a lecture, an academic monologue. Think a university professor explaining complex subject matter without interruption.
Wow, yeah, you can immediately hear how the language, the specific vocabulary, is going to become significantly more intricate and specialized as you go through those sections.
Yeah.
I've always thought of IELTS as just hard English, but breaking it down by section like that really highlights why it gets harder.
Exactly.
It's the specific vocabulary demands changing.
Precisely. That casual chat about booking a restaurant uses very different words compared to a professor explaining, say, complex economic theory or a scientific principle.
Right.
And that increasing difficulty powerfully underlines why expanding your vocabulary is so essential for confidently navigating those later, more demanding sections.
Mm.
And honestly, any complex listening situation in life, you just need a broader, more nuanced understanding of language available to you.
All right, so the guide isn't just about general vocabulary. It highlights specific types that are most important for effective listening. It pinpoints 3 crucial categories. What should listeners be focusing on?
Right. It identifies 3 crucial pillars for your listening comprehension toolkit: academic vocabulary, conversational vocabulary, and instructional vocabulary. Each plays a pretty distinct role.
All right, let's take a closer look at each. First up, academic vocabulary. What kind of words are we talking about here, and why do they matter so much?
Well, like the name suggests, these are words common in formal academic settings: lectures, research papers, scholarly discussions. The guide gives some really pertinent examples like significant, meaning important; fluctuate, which means to change or vary;
Right.
hypothesis, an idea you test through research; and evaluate, to judge or calculate something's value.
Got it. These aren't words you'd likely drop into a casual chat with friends generally.
Hmm.
So why is recognizing this specific type of vocabulary so vital for understanding more formal spoken English?
Because these words often carry significant meaning. They represent the foundational concepts and key ideas within academic fields. If you miss a word like hypothesis in a lecture,
Yeah.
you could totally miss the core foundation of the research being discussed, not just a single detail. Understanding these terms is truly the key to following more complex ideas and arguments in those formal settings.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You're missing the building blocks of the argument, really. Okay, second category. Conversational vocabulary. This sounds like the everyday language we hear all the time. But what's the trick here? Is it just about knowing common words?
Well, yes and no. It is about the common words, but it's also about understanding the natural flow of spoken English in informal situations. The casual expressions, the relaxed tone, and those little filler phrases people use that aren't strictly part of the sentence's grammatical structure.
Like what? Give us some examples of these filler phrases or casual expressions.
Sure, the guide highlights things like, you know what I mean, or kind of, sort of. Also, words people pepper into their speech like actually or basically.
These might seem small, almost insignificant sometimes, but I can imagine if you're not tuned into them, they could actually make it harder to follow or maybe even misinterpret someone's intent. Like if someone says, it was kind of good, that's very different from it was good.
Absolutely. These phrases aren't just filler. They often contribute to the rhythm and naturalness of speech. Understanding that kind of might signal uncertainty, or that actually might introduce a slight correction or a new angle,
Right.
helps you grasp the speaker's intended meaning and the overall tone much better. They add color and nuance.
Okay. And the third category you mentioned was instructional vocabulary. This sounds absolutely critical in tests, but probably applies in many other areas too, right? Like just following directions.
Oh, absolutely critical. Think about following a recipe, or assembling furniture, or even just navigating a new city with verbal directions. Instructional vocabulary is simply the specific words used in instructions, test papers, guidelines, or someone giving you directions.
Like what kind of phrases? The ones that could really trip you up if you miss them.
The guide points out key ones like no more than 2 words.
The classic constraint that catches so many people off guard. It's such a small phrase, but its impact is enormous.
Exactly. Or choose the correct letter and write the word. You hear these very specific commands, and you can immediately see how misunderstanding those could directly impact your outcome, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
If you miss the no more than 2 words bit, you might write a perfectly correct answer, but still lose points because you went over the limit. So paying close attention to these seemingly small instructional words makes a huge difference in accurately doing what's asked. It's about understanding the rules of the game, basically.
Okay, so we understand the types of vocabulary that matter. Now, the million-dollar question.
Mm-hmm.
How do we actually build this vocabulary effectively for listening? The guide lays out some really actionable, smart techniques.
Yes, and these are powerful strategies anyone can weave into their learning routine. The first one is contextual learning.
Meaning, it's not just about a word and its definition. How is that different from what most of us have done, like learning vocab lists?
Exactly. It means Learning new words within full sentences, maybe even whole paragraphs, not just memorizing isolated definitions. You want to understand not just the meaning, but how the word is used in natural language. The guide gives an example. The river has fluctuated considerably due to seasonal changes.
Okay, so how does learning fluctuated that way
Yeah.
provide a richer understanding than just looking up fluctuated change?
Well, you don't just learn it means change. You see how it's used describing a specific kind of change, maybe up and down or irregular over time, influenced by something else, like seasonal changes.
Right.
It gives you a much richer understanding of the word, its connotations, and how you might actually hear it used in a real conversation or lecture. It's far deeper than just a simple substitution.
Got it. Much deeper than just a single word synonym. Okay, next technique. Audio shadowing. Sounds active. What's involved there?
It is active and incredibly effective. You listen to authentic spoken English, a podcast, audiobook, a news report, whatever, and you try to repeat what the speaker is saying as they're saying it, like at the same time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You're mimicking their pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm as closely as you can. It helps your speaking, sure, but it also strongly reinforces how vocabulary sounds and is used naturally in context. It's great for listening recall and internalizing the natural flow.
So you're not just passively hearing, you're actively engaging your voice and brain to process and reproduce it. That sounds like a powerful mental workout for your ears and mouth.
Precisely. That active participation helps your brain internalize the sounds, the flow, the word combinations. It significantly improves your ability to recognize them instantaneously when you hear them again, even in fast speech.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Third technique, vocabulary mapping.
Yeah.
I'm picturing something like a mind map, but for words. Is that right?
You're absolutely on the right track. It involves creating visual connections. You put a central word in the middle and then branch out with related words, synonyms, antonyms, related concepts, maybe even example sentences. The guide uses energy as an example.
Okay.
So it branches out to words like renewable, fossil fuel, solar, electricity, power grid. You literally see the connections visually laid out.
I can definitely see how that visual approach would build connections in your brain, strengthening recall when you hear related terms.
It's like building a mental web instead of just a list.
Exactly. It builds a more interconnected understanding, which leads to quicker, more effective recall when you're listening live. Your brain doesn't just pull up one word, it pulls up a whole cluster of related ideas.
Nice. The guide also mentions spaced repetition. We've heard of this for other learning, right?
Yeah.
How does it apply specifically here for vocabulary?
Yes, it's a well-known, scientifically proven technique. You review vocabulary at increasing intervals over time. The idea is to catch the word just as you're about to forget it, basically, pushing it into long-term memory.
Right.
And there are great digital tools for this. Apps like Anki or Quizlet, for example, use algorithms to automate the scheduling, showing you words at the optimal time for review based on your past performance.
So it's more strategic than just looking at a list over and over hoping it sticks. It really optimizes your memory consolidation. Much more strategic, much more efficient. It focuses your effort where your brain needs it most, maximizing retention. It truly makes sense.
And the final technique mentioned is dictation and transcription practice. Sounds like it forces you to really focus and catch every single nuance.
It really does. You listen to a short recording, it could be just 30 seconds or a minute, and try to write down every single word you hear. You focus intently on word endings, phrasal verbs, collocations, those natural word pairings. It sharpens your ear for the absolute details.
I imagine that's great for picking up subtle things you might otherwise miss in fast speech, like ease endings or linking sounds between words.
Precisely. It trains your ear to catch those finer points of pronunciation and word combinations that are crucial for full comprehension, particularly when speakers might be talking quickly or have accents you're not familiar with.
Okay, now the guide also talks about thematic vocabulary building, learning vocabulary around specific topics. This feels like a smart shortcut, doesn't it? Focusing your efforts.
Yes, this allows you to develop a more targeted understanding for subjects you're likely to encounter, rather than just learning random words scattered across different fields. It gives examples for common themes like education, the environment, and science and tech.
Let's explore those a bit. For education, what key vocabulary does it highlight? What kind of words are we talking about?
It points to curriculum, the subjects taught in a school or course. For example, the school is updating its science curriculum.
Right.
Also, tuition, the fee paid for instruction, like tuition fees have increased significantly. And assessment evaluating knowledge. Final assessment will be based on attendance and a project.
So if you're listening to discussions about schools, university costs, how students are graded, these words are likely to pop up. Knowing them helps you immediately plug into the context.
Exactly. Knowing them really helps you follow along without constantly pausing to look up terms or guess from context.
What about the environment? That's a huge topic. Key terms there that pop up frequently.
It highlights sustainable, meaning something can be maintained without harming the environment long term. For example, sustainable farming reduces environmental harm.
Hmm.
And also pollution, the introduction of harmful substances like air pollution is worse during the winter. Again, with environmental issues being so prevalent, understanding these is crucial for following news reports or academic discussions.
Absolutely. Climate change reports, lectures on biodiversity, these are fundamental. And finally, science and technology, another big area. What are the keywords there?
The guide includes innovation, a new idea or method. This innovation reduced manufacturing costs by 30%, and data facts and statistics collected for analysis. The data shows a clear upward trend.
Yeah, with science and tech always moving forward, you'll hear these a lot, especially in more formal contexts like lectures or reports on scientific breakthroughs.
Precisely. Understanding them lets you engage much more effectively with discussions about discoveries or new technologies.
The guide also touches on navigating trickier parts of spoken English, things like phrasal verbs, idioms, and collocations. These can definitely be confusing because their meaning often isn't what you'd expect from the individual words.
Oh, they certainly can be. Phrasal verbs like turn up meaning arrive or give up meaning quit. Their meaning often isn't obvious from the individual parts, right? You can't translate them word for word.
Not at all.
And idioms like in hot water meaning in trouble, or hit the books meaning study, or on the same page meaning agree. You absolutely cannot figure those out word by word. You just have to know them as chunks.
And collocations, those natural word pairings, like we say, make a decision, not do a decision.
Yes, exactly. Or heavy rain, not strong rain. Recognizing these natural pairs helps you anticipate and understand better, and it makes your own English sound far more natural, too.
So understanding all these nuances, phrasal verbs, idioms, collocations, is really key for truly getting informal spoken English and sounding natural yourself. It's definitely a layer beyond just basic vocabulary.
It is. When you hear someone say they turned up late or they need to hit the books, familiarity is everything for instant comprehension. You don't want to be pausing to decode those.
Now, another really important point the guide makes is about paraphrasing and synonyms. It highlights that speakers often don't use the exact words you might expect, especially in high-stakes listening situations like tests, but also just in conversation.
This is such a crucial skill in real speech and especially in tests. You hear synonyms and rephrased ideas way more often than exact repetitions from, say, a written question. The guide gives a clear example. If a question asks, what is the main benefit of this device?
Okay.
And the audio says its biggest advantage is how user-friendly it is, you need to connect those ideas.
So break down the synonyms there for our listener. What connections do they need to make in that example?
Sure, so benefit in the question becomes advantage in the audio. Main becomes biggest. And user-friendly is essentially expressed as easy to use. Being able to quickly connect those related meanings, benefit, advantage, main, biggest, user-friendly, easy to use, is absolutely vital for understanding and answering correctly.
So it's not just about dictionary definitions, it's about being flexible and recognizing concepts expressed differently. It forces your brain to work a bit harder, I guess.
Exactly. It requires active listening. You're constantly looking for different ways the speaker might be phrasing the information you need, rather than just waiting for exact word matches.
Okay, so we're working on building vocabulary, getting better at recognizing, paraphrasing. How do we make this new vocabulary actually stick in our long-term memory? The guide offers some really clever retention tips.
Yes, practical things you can do daily. One is reviewing new words just before sleep and again right after waking up.
Huh.
Apparently that helps consolidate memory because your brain is doing a lot of memory processing during sleep cycles.
Interesting, I've heard that. What else helps anchor these new words?
Actively using the new words in your own speech. Don't just read or write them. Actually speaking them helps solidify understanding and recall. It's like creating a stronger neural pathway for retrieval.
Makes sense. It's like muscle memory for your brain, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
If you produce it, you're more likely to recognize it when someone else says it.
Also, keeping a vocabulary journal, noting the word, definition, an example sentence, maybe even where you first heard it, is great for review and seeing your progress. And surprisingly effective. Try teaching the new words to someone else.
Really? How does that help?
Explaining it to someone else powerfully reinforces your own understanding because you have to truly grasp it yourself to articulate it clearly to another person. It forces you to process it deeply.
Those are all really actionable steps, moving beyond just passive absorption. Now, for ongoing improvement, the guide also lists some recommended resources. Where should people look?
It does. For test prep specifically, it mentions IELTS podcasts like the British Council IELTS podcast, IELTS Energy, and YouTube channels like IELTS Liz and E2 IELTS. These are incredibly useful, even if you're not taking the test.
Right. Often they're packed with general language learning content, too, not just exam tips.
Exactly. But for broader development, it recommends apps like Anki and Quizlet for interactive practice. Engaging with news sites like the BBC, The Guardian, NPR exposes you to real-world vocabulary in authentic contexts.
Good variety. And even watching Netflix shows with English subtitles on. Seeing the words while hearing them spoken could be very effective for vocabulary expansion. It's a low-effort, potentially high-reward approach for many.
That's a nice mix, yeah. Something for everyone there, catering to different learning styles and preferences.
Okay, towards the end of the guide, it includes a section on more advanced vocabulary. Let's touch on a few of these because mastering them can really elevate your understanding in complex discussions, especially in academic contexts, like Section 4 of the test.
Absolutely. These often appear in more formal and nuanced discussions. Take alleviate. It means to reduce or lessen something negative, like pain or problems. For example, the new policies aim to alleviate traffic congestion.
Right, so more precise than just reduce.
Exactly. Understanding that word helps you grasp the idea of making a bad situation less severe. Another one, ambiguous. That's a common one to misinterpret sometimes.
Yeah, what's the core meaning then?
Yeah, very useful. It means open to more than one interpretation or simply unclear. Example, his instructions were so ambiguous that no one knew what to do. Recognizing it helps you understand when something isn't clear-cut or maybe even deliberately vague.
Definitely important. How about agreement among a group? Is there a good word for that?
That would be consensus. General agreement among a group. After hours of discussion, the committee finally reached a consensus. It signals a shared decision or opinion has been formed.
Got it. And a word for something causing harm or damage.
Detrimental, yes, means causing harm or damage. Excessive screen time can be detrimental to children's eyesight, helps you identify negative impacts being discussed clearly. And one more, suggesting making things easier.
Facilitate, maybe.
Exactly. Facilitate means to make a process or action easier. The translator helped facilitate communication between the two parties, a key word in discussions about problem solving or efficiency. Other important ones the guide mentions include inevitable, viable, and controversial.
These advanced words really add depth, don't they? For listening comprehension especially, they allow you to grasp the full nuance of complex arguments, not just the surface meaning.
They really do, yeah. And while it takes effort to learn them, the payoff in understanding complex speech is significant. It moves you from understanding the basic facts to really understanding the subtleties and implications.
Okay, so we've covered a lot today. Why vocabulary is so crucial for listening, specific types to focus on, techniques for building it, and resources. I think the main takeaway is that building listening vocabulary isn't passive. It really needs active engagement, consistent effort, using strategies like these.
Absolutely. So as you go about your day, maybe think about the last time you struggled to fully understand something you heard. Could a stronger grasp of specific vocabulary have made a difference for you then?
Yeah.
And perhaps what's one new word or perhaps one technique we talked about that you'll try to incorporate into your learning starting today?
Yeah, making it a continuous process, not just a one-time fix.
Exactly. It's all about making vocabulary building an ongoing, rewarding journey.
So robust vocabulary is the bedrock. But understanding words isn't just about what they mean. It's about how they're delivered, right? And that brings us to the crucial skill of deciphering accents, especially in diverse listening situations like the IELTS or any real-world global communication.
Yes. Recognizing and understanding British, Australian, Canadian, and American accents is vital, not just for tests, but for truly connecting with people globally. Each has its own distinct flavor, its own sort of musicality.
Let's start with British English. Now, when people say a British accent, that's actually not just one thing, is it? It's quite varied.
Oh, not at all. That's crucial to understand. It's a whole spectrum.
Yeah.
You've got received pronunciation, or RP, often associated with traditional BBC news readers, sometimes called the Queen's English.
Right.
But then you have very different sounds like Cockney in London, or estuary English, which is a blend. And then you go north to Manchester or Liverpool or to Scotland or Wales, and it's completely different again. So yeah, British is definitely not monolithic.
So if I'm listening, what are some key pronunciation clues, things that might instantly signal some kind of British accent, broadly speaking?
Well, one big one, especially in less formal speech, is T-glottalization. That's when the T sound in the middle or end of words like water or better becomes more of a glottal stop a little catch in the throat instead of a crisp T. So water can sound a bit like wah.
Oh, okay, I think I know what you mean. It's almost like a slight pause or catch instead of a hard T.
Exactly. Then there's non-rheticity in many accents, basically dropping the R sound at the end of words unless the next word starts with a vowel. So car becomes ka, and father is often fado,
Okay.
and you'll often notice specific vowel shifts, like in words such as bath, dance, grass. In many Southern British accents, it's a longer ah sound, so bath, rather than the shorter ah often heard in American English.
Got it. So pronunciation is key. What about specific vocabulary? Are there word giveaways?
Oh, definitely. Vocabulary is a big flag. A large vehicle is a lorry, not a truck. An apartment is usually a flat. You eat biscuits, not cookies, and sweets, not candy. And time off work or school, that's a holiday, not vacation. Spotting these words is a really quick indicator.
Makes sense. So for someone wanting to practice recognizing British accents, what do you suggest? Where should they go?
Immerse yourself. Watch British TV. BBC News for more standard pronunciation, or dramas like Downton Abbey for RP-ish sounds, maybe Peaky Blinders for more regional variety, though that one might be tougher for learners.
Yeah, maybe start easier.
Listen to UK podcasts. The British Council has good ones specifically for learners. Focus on those vowel sounds, listen for the dropped R's, and collect that unique vocabulary. For example, in a booking scenario, like someone reserving a double room for 3 nights, you'll often hear very clear articulation leaning towards standard pronunciation, and the vocabulary is direct. It shows that even with an accent, the core information in everyday scenarios is usually quite clearly conveyed.
Okay, good point. Let's shift continents. Australia. What hits you first with an Aussie accent? What are the main characteristics?
It's interesting. For many non-native English speakers, those vowel sounds can be quite tricky. They're quite distinct. And there's often this upward inflection at the end of sentences, a rising intonation even on statements, which can sometimes make a statement sound like a question to the uninitiated ear.
Yes, I've noticed that. It's quite distinctive, that upward tilt.
And the vowel flattening is quite noticeable. The vowel sound in day can sound closer to die, or mate might sound a bit like might to some ears.
Right, I've heard that comparison. That could definitely be confusing if you're not prepared for it.
It definitely can be. And like many British accents, it's non-erotic, meaning generally no hard R sound at the end of words like car or water.
So the rising intonation and the flat vowels are key sound clues. What about distinct Aussie words or slang? Are there telltale signs?
Oh yeah, plenty of slang, or strine as it's sometimes called. Afternoon becomes arvo. Breakfast is often bricky. And those sandals are thongs, which means flip-flops elsewhere, of course. Candy is lollies. And a portable cooler box is an esky. Knowing these helps you avoid blank stares and casual conversations down under.
Definitely useful to know. So how do you get your ear tuned to Australian English?
Same principle, immersion. Watch Aussie shows. Things like Neighbours or Home and Away are long-running soaps, or popular global hits like MasterChef Australia. Listen to news podcasts, absolutely. ABC News Australia is great. And actively seek IELTS practice material specifically with Australian speakers. Pay attention to that intonation, when does it rise, and focus on those vowel sounds. For example, you might hear a casual G day at the start of a conversation. The key details, like a course duration of 6 weeks, are still likely to be clearly enunciated and easily understandable despite the informal greeting. It's about filtering for that specific info amidst the accent.
All right, okay, let's head north. Canada, often described as a mix of British and American. How true is that perception, and what really sets it apart?
Yeah, that's a fair starting point. It definitely borrows from both, but has its own unique flavor. People sometimes mistake it for American, especially certain regional American accents, but there are subtle yet distinct differences if you listen closely.
Like what? What are the pronunciation giveaways for Canadian English?
The big one linguists talk about is Canadian raising. It affects vowels before voiceless consonants like T, P, K, S. So the ow sound in words like about or house, how does it sound? It's raised a bit in the mouth. About can sound a little like a boot to some ears, house like hoose. It's often subtle but distinctive once you notice it.
Interesting. And the R sound, is it pronounced like in American English or dropped like British Australian?
Yes, it's erotic. Like most American English, the R sound is almost always pronounced clearly. And often, Canadian speech is perceived as quite clearly enunciated, quite distinct, and relatively neutral, which can actually be helpful for learners sometimes.
And vocabulary, where does it lean? British, American, or does it have its own unique terms?
It's a real mashup, plus some unique ones. For a public toilet, they usually say washroom, not loo, UK, or usually restroom, US. Athletic shoes are often runners, not trainers, UK, or sneakers, US. Their dollar coin is famously the loonie. A winter hat is a toque, and your electricity bill might refer to hydro. So it's a mix, plus some purely Canadian terms you just have to learn.
So how can listeners get familiar with this sound?
Watch Canadian media. CBC News is a good source for more formal speech. Shows like Kim's Convenience or Schitt's Creek give you more casual conversation and expose you to different social contexts and maybe some character accents. Listen to radio, CBC Radio 1 for varied programming. Listen for that subtle ow sound difference in words like about, and just generally absorb the common Canadian terms. In something like a community event inquiry, you'll often hear a clear, neutral tone with straightforward key information, even if it doesn't have obvious Canadianisms in that specific clip. The clarity itself can be a hallmark.
Okay, finally, the American accent. Probably the most familiar globally for many listeners thanks to media saturation.
Often, yes, thanks to decades of movies and TV shows exported worldwide. But it's crucial to remember the US is huge. An American accent isn't one single thing either. Regional variations are significant. You've got General American, often heard on national news, then the Southern drawl, the distinct New York sound, the Midwestern accent, loads of variety. So even with familiarity, we shouldn't assume it's all the same across the country.
Right, good point. What are some general characteristics that tend to distinguish it from the others we've discussed, bearing that variation in mind?
Well, a key one is rhoticity. Like Canadian English, the R sound is nearly always pronounced strongly, whether it's the beginning, middle, or end of words. Car, hard, father. Intonation can vary widely by region. Some regional accents, like Midwestern, can sound a bit flatter in intonation compared to, say, standard British English. And vowels are often quite strong, sometimes perceived as a bit nasal compared to RP sometimes. Think the A sound in cat or man.
And vocabulary, we touched on some earlier when comparing, but what are some key American terms to know that differ from British or others?
Right. Truck, not lorry. Apartment, not flat. Elevator, not lift. Trash can, not bin. Sidewalk, not pavement. Vacation, not holiday. Knowing these common pairs is super useful for quick comprehension and avoiding confusion.
So practice tips for American English, maybe even for spotting regional differences if a listener wants to go deeper into that.
Watch American TV and movies. Friends, The Office are classics for conversational style. News like CNN, NBC offers more formal language. TED Talks are fantastic, featuring loads of American speakers from various backgrounds and regions. For regional differences specifically, YouTube is full of content showcasing them. Just search for things like New York accent or Southern accent pronunciation examples. For example, in a student orientation inquiry recording, you might hear a casual, hey, but the necessary detail about location is likely given directly, even with informal language. It's often about that directness and clarity despite the casual tone.
Okay, so we've toured the big four accents, common in tests and global communication. What are some overarching strategies listeners can use to just get better at handling all these accents in any listening situation they encounter?
Active, targeted practice is absolutely everything. Don't just passively listen and hope it sinks in. Try short, daily clips of each accent. Your first goal, just identify it. British, Aussie, Canadian, American, before even worrying about the content. Train your ear for the overall sound first.
Okay.
Then try mimicking short phrases. It really helps connect the sound to how it feels to say it. And when you're actually listening or practicing, focus hard on keywords. Nouns, verbs, adjectives carrying the main meaning. Listen especially for numbers, dates, times, and signal words like however, firstly, and contrast. They guide you to the important information regardless of the accent.
What about shadowing, which you mentioned earlier for vocabulary? Does it work well for accents too?
Oh, shadowing is brilliant for accents. Repeating what you hear almost immediately. It forces you to catch the rhythm, the intonation, the stress patterns, and even the subtle pronunciation shifts, not just individual words. It tunes your ear to the music of the accent. And use transcripts with audio sometimes, especially early on, to link sound and spelling. But don't rely on them forever. The goal is to train your ear to do the work independently.
Good point. Avoid the crutch. And note-taking is vital in listening tests and lectures. How do accents affect that, especially when you're under pressure?
You need speed and efficiency. Develop abbreviations and symbols that work for you personally. Leave space between notes, don't cram them together. You might need to add something later. What if you hear a word but aren't sure of the spelling because of the accent? Don't get stuck. Write it phonetically, how it sounds to you. Getting something down, even if it's rough, is better than missing the next point.
Right, capture the essence. Now, what about common mistakes people make specifically with accents? How can we actively avoid them?
A big one is mishearing similar sounding words. Think can versus can't. The vowel sound differs subtly across accents and stress patterns, and it can change the whole meaning. Or minimal pairs like ship and sheep, live and leave. Practice these specific sound contrasts within different accents.
Makes sense. Those small sound differences make a huge impact on meaning. What else?
Accent bias. This is expecting only, say, British English, then getting completely thrown when an Australian speaker starts talking. The fix. Deliberate exposure. Make sure your practice includes all 4 common accents regularly. Rotate them. Don't let your brain get too comfortable with just one sound.
Good advice.
And intonation. We talked about the Aussie rising tone. Misinterpreting intonation is common. Thinking a statement is a question. Or missing sarcasm or emphasis because the pattern is unfamiliar. Again, shadowing helps train your ear for these rises and falls, the musicality of the accent, and the danger of always using subtitles or transcripts. It becomes a crutch, as you said. You must practice listening without visual aids. Start short, maybe 30 seconds of audio, then build up. Train your ear to do the heavy lifting on its own.
Okay, let's quickly map these accent tendencies onto the IELTS listening test structures as the general guide. 4 sections. Where do these different accents typically pop up? Are there any predictable patterns?
Okay, so yeah, these are general tendencies, not strict rules, remember. Any accent can appear anywhere, but generally. Section 1, usually an everyday chat with 2 speakers. British and Australian accents are pretty common here.
Okay.
Section 2, a monologue typically in a social context, like a tour guide, often British, Australian, or Canadian.
Right, so still relatively accessible accents generally expected there.
Yes. Section 3 is the academic discussion, usually 2 to 4 speakers. This is where you most likely get a mix, maybe American and British students discussing a project, or Australian and Canadian tutors. You need to be ready for that interplay.
Okay.
And Section 4, the lecture, typically a monologue delivering academic content. This is often British or American, reflecting common university settings. But again, it's important to note, any accent could appear in any section. These are just the most common patterns observed.
Good to know. It keeps you on your toes. Any quick tips for each section, bearing accents in mind specifically?
Sure. For Section 1, focus like a laser on names, numbers, dates, times, addresses. The answers are usually specific facts, and accents often don't distort these core details too much. Spelling counts, so listen hard. Section 2, try to get the gist quickly. What's the main topic? What's the speaker's purpose or attitude? What's the general setting being described? Section 3, track who's speaking, especially with mixed accents. Listen for agreement, disagreement, different viewpoints, and use speaker cues if provided. Section 4, tune into the lecture flow. Academic vocabulary is key here, and listen for clear signposting language. Firstly, to conclude, in contrast, etc., and just be ready for the different rhythms and speeds each accent might naturally have. Don't expect them all to sound the same pace.
Right. Let's quickly revisit those key vocabulary differences one last time, just to reinforce them, because they are such a direct indicator of accent origin sometimes.
Sure. Think trash, U.S. versus rubbish, U.K., or sometimes garbage, U.S. can. Apartment, U.S. can, versus flat, U.K., versus maybe unit, cosas. The back of a car. Trunk, U.S. versus boot, U.K. Public toilets. Restroom or bathroom, U.S. versus washroom can versus toilet or loo, UK. These are instant giveaways when you hear them.
So we've sharpened our ear for words and accents, but what about the bigger picture? The guide points out that getting a high IELTS score, or really excelling in any high-stakes English communication, isn't just about how well you speak or understand the language itself. It's also deeply about understanding the game itself. The format, the quirks, the common traps.
Exactly. It's about knowing the format, the quirks, the common traps that are often built into these assessments. Many highly proficient English speakers trip up not on their actual language ability, but on understanding the test mechanics or falling into predictable pitfalls. The guide walks through these common mistakes across all modules, and it's invaluable knowledge for anyone preparing.
Let's quickly go through some of the most common mistakes across all the IELTS modules before we dive into that 30-day listening plan. What are the overarching errors people make, even if their English is pretty good?
The first and most basic is ignoring instructions. It sounds incredibly simple, but critical errors happen when people don't read carefully and follow word limits, answer formats, or time limits. It's like exploring without looking at the map legend.
That feels like something easily avoidable with just a moment of focus.
Uh,
What else trips people up generally?
Not practicing under proper exam conditions. There's a huge difference between knowing English casually and performing under the pressure of the clock with specific task types. You really need to do full-timed mock tests using official materials to build that stamina and familiarity.
Right.
And closely related, poor time allocation across the whole test. Getting bogged down in one difficult reading passage, for example, means you run out of time for others, even if you might know the answers. You need a rough plan for dividing your time between sections and sticking to it as best you can.
And what about after you've actually written down your answers?
Not reviewing your work. Use every last second you have. Go back over your answers in listening and reading, check for silly mistakes. And proofread meticulously in writing, checking for spelling, grammar, and awkward phrasing. Those final checks can catch easy points.
Okay, let's get specific now. What are the most common mistakes people make in the listening module itself?
First, not using the preview time effectively to read questions beforehand. You get a little window, use it to underline keywords, predict the type of answer needed, a name, a number, a place. Second, falling for distractors or false leads. The test often gives you seemingly correct information that is then immediately corrected or changed. Listen for words like actually, but however, oh, sorry, I meant
Those correction words are key signals.
definitely. Third, spelling and grammar in your answers. It counts. Review common words, practice transcribing names and numbers accurately. And finally, not following word or form limits. Pay strict attention to instructions like no more than 2 words and/or a number. Going over means 0 points for that answer, even if the information is right.
Switching to reading, what are the big pitfalls there?
A major one is trying to read every single word of every passage. It's a huge time drain and usually unnecessary. The fix: skim for the general idea first, then scan specifically for keywords related to the questions.
Okay, be more targeted.
Another big one is true, false, not given confusion. Remember the strict definitions. True means the text explicitly states it. False means the text explicitly contradicts it. And not given means the information isn't mentioned in the text at all. Don't infer or use outside knowledge.
Right, stick strictly to the text provided.
Also, missing synonyms and paraphrasing. The reading section is designed to test this heavily. You must actively train your brain to spot rephrased ideas. Don't just scan for exact word matches from the question. Lastly, transfer errors to the answer sheet. It sounds basic, but leave time at the end to carefully double-check spelling, word limits, and that you've put each answer in the correct numbered box. Easy marks to lose carelessly.
For writing, which is often a challenge, what are the common stumbling blocks?
A huge one is not answering all parts of the question task achievement. You might discuss one view in an essay but forget to give your own opinion if asked. Fix: break down the prompt carefully before you start writing. Second, weak thesis statements and topic sentences. Your thesis should clearly state your main position or argument, and each topic sentence should clearly signal the main point of its paragraph.
Providing that clear structure.
Exactly. Third, vocabulary repetition. Actively use synonyms. Instead of important 3 times, use significant, crucial, vital. Show your range. Fourth, sometimes trying to use overly complex language just for show. Prioritize clarity over unnecessary complexity, but do use a good mix of simple and complex sentence structures naturally. Finally, poor time management between Task 1 and Task 2. Remember, Task 2 is worth more marks. Roughly 20 minutes for Task 1, 40 for Task 2, and always plan your essays briefly first.
And the speaking module, where you're face-to-face. What traps should listeners be aware of there?
Using memorized answers. Examiners are trained to spot them instantly, and it signals a lack of spontaneous communication ability. Fix: sound natural. Respond to the actual question, improvise. Second, giving short, underdeveloped answers, especially in part 2 and 3. Expand. Use the PE strategy. Make your point, explain it, give an example.
Good tip.
Third, significant pronunciation and intonation issues that impede comprehension. Record yourself, use online tools like Youglish or Forvo to compare your sounds to native speakers. Fourth, overuse of fillers like excessively. Try to replace them sometimes with more meaningful thinking phrases like, that's an interesting point, let me think for a moment. And lastly, holding back on using complex grammar you might know. Don't be afraid to show your range with conditionals, comparatives, relative clauses, but do it naturally where appropriate. Don't force it unnaturally.
Okay, now for the ultimate deep dive into actionable strategy. The guide doesn't just list what to learn or what mistakes to avoid. It gives you a structured path, a detailed 30-day plan specifically for listening that seems incredibly comprehensive and holistic.
Yes, it's a detailed roadmap designed to be much more than just grinding through endless practice tests. It blends daily activities, targeted vocabulary work, accent exposure, mock tests, and even related conversation practice into a strategic refinement process. It's all about consistent, focused, active work over that month.
All right, let's walk through this 30-day plan week by week, starting with week 1, building strong foundations. What's the key focus here in the first 7 days?
The key focus is really understanding the test structure, the 4 parts, the different contexts, social, academic, and the various question types like multiple choice, form completion, matching, map labeling. The crucial first step the guide recommends is to take a full official listening test, maybe from one of the Cambridge IELTS books.
Okay, establish a baseline.
Exactly. But more importantly, you must analyze your mistakes ruthlessly. Pinpoint your weak spots. Is it a specific accent that throws you off? A particular question type like maps or multiple choice? Understanding why you made mistakes is key.
So it's not just about getting a score, it's about deep self-diagnosis right from the start.
Exactly. Then focus on accuracy and concentration drills. Practice accuracy on details like spelling names, numbers, addresses, because spelling counts heavily. Build concentration by trying to listen to short segments without subtitles first, then check with subtitles to pinpoint precisely where you missed something or misheard.
And integrating that vocabulary work we talked about.
Yes. Start creating topic-based vocabulary lists. Maybe travel, health, environment, education are good starting points. Write the word, its definition, and crucially, an example sentence for context.
And weaving in those accents we just discussed. How does week 1 handle that?
Yes, immerse yourself from day one. Maybe listen to the British Council podcast for British English, ABC News podcasts for Australian, CBC radio clips for Canadian. Actively note pronunciation differences, those vowels, the intonation patterns. For dictation and note-taking, practice dictation by writing down every word from short audio clips. This really hones spelling accuracy and processing speed. And start practicing note-taking methods like mind mapping or Cornell notes, especially for the longer sections 3 and 4, focusing on keywords and main ideas, not trying to write full sentences.
And how do we cap off this foundational week 1?
The guide suggests another full official test at the end of the week. Then repeat the deep analysis, compare it to your first test, and note any new vocabulary encountered, especially words that caused problems.
Moving into week 2, sharpening skills. The foundation is laid. What's the emphasis now?
This week is about building topic awareness for common IELTS themes, improving your answer accuracy on specific question types, and getting better at spotting those crucial signal words like however or firstly or in contrast. You'll do more part-specific practice, focus drills on part 1, form completion, spelling practice using common scenarios like shopping queries or hotel bookings. And part 2, monologues, practicing map labeling, matching information using recordings like museum tour guides or event descriptions.
And that critical vocabulary twist, the paraphrasing and synonyms we discussed earlier, how does week 2 tackle that?
Yes, this is crucial for week 2. A deep dive into synonyms and paraphrasing because IELTS listening heavily relies on rephrasing ideas between the question and the audio. The guide suggests an activity. Listen to a short audio segment, pause, write down key phrases or ideas you heard, then actively brainstorm as many synonyms or different ways to express that same idea.
Wow.
So if you hear the cost of living went up, you might brainstorm there was a rise in expenses, prices increased, it became more expensive to live. Actively training your brain for that flexibility.
Okay, so actively generating alternatives. And for academic listening parts 3 and 4, what's the focus?
For part 3, the group discussions, focus on identifying speaker attitude, opinions, agreement, disagreement. Really track who thinks what, especially when multiple speakers are involved.
Yeah.
For part 4, the academic lectures, focus on identifying the overall structure, the introduction, main points, conclusion, and practice spotting those signal words that guide the listener. Firstly, in addition, however, to sum up, practice question types common here, like sentence completion and short answers based on the lecture content.
So how do we wrap up week 2? Another test.
Yes, another full test, but the guide suggests trying a 2-pass approach this time. First pass, answer normally under timed conditions. Second pass, go back through the audio, maybe with a transcript this time, and actively analyze the language used, specifically looking for examples of paraphrasing, synonyms, and distractors. It's a meta-analysis of how the test works.
All right, week 3, advanced practice and stamina building. This sounds like where the real intensity ramps up.
It does. The key focus now is minimizing those recurring mistakes identified earlier, fine-tuning your strategies for each question type, and building the mental endurance needed for the full test. Conduct timed practice sessions, simulating real test conditions as closely as possible. Minimize distractions, use an official answer sheet if you have one.
And pushing vocabulary and synthesis skills further.
Yes. Focus on high-frequency academic words, the guide suggests, maybe targeting 50 topic-specific ones relevant to common, Part 3 and 4 themes, and use flashcard tools like Anki or Quizlet for spaced repetition. And there's a powerful technique mentioned. Listen plus speak plus summarize.
Oh yeah, tell us about that one. How does it work?
You listen to a short TED Talk or a university lecture clip, maybe 5–10 minutes. Then immediately afterwards, you try to give a 2-minute spoken summary of the main points without looking at any notes. This builds listening memory, comprehension skills, and speaking fluency all at the same time. It's a fantastic all-in-one exercise.
That does sound challenging, but effective. And what about the mental game, managing stress?
Psychological prep becomes more important as the test nears. Address any test anxiety with techniques like mindfulness or simple breathing exercises before practice sessions. And error logging is absolutely crucial in week 3. Go back through all your past mistakes from practice tests, log them systematically, question type, topic, what your mistake was, and importantly, write down what the correct strategy or approach should have been. This helps you spot patterns in your errors and target your weaknesses much more effectively.
That's a really smart, analytical approach to mistakes, learning from them actively.
Absolutely. And for improving speed, the guide suggests rapid response training. Listen to very short clips, maybe just 20–30 seconds, and quickly write down the main gist or key information in 1 or 2 concise sentences. This trains your brain to filter information rapidly under pressure.
And week 3 is culmination. How do we check progress?
Another full mock test, this time really focusing on maintaining speed and accuracy under simulated real conditions, followed by that essential detailed review of all incorrect answers, updating your error log.
And finally, week 4, the final stretch and test readiness. What's the plan for these critical last days leading up to the test?
The key focus now is refining your timing for each section, boosting confidence through familiarity, and getting totally test ready, both mentally and strategically. Revisit your strategies for each part, maybe even create a personal cheat sheet, summarizing key question formats, common traps to watch for, and timing tips for yourself.
And reinforcing that accent flexibility.
Yes. Do an accent mix test. Deliberately use a practice test that features a mix of British, Australian, Canadian, and American accents, perhaps even within the same section if possible, to really build your flexibility and ensure no single accent throws you off.
That's a smart way to prepare for the potential unpredictability. What else in week 4?
Mental endurance practice. Challenge yourself by listening to maybe 3 sections back-to-back without a break, just to practice maintaining focus for an extended period. The echo technique is also recommended here. Practice immediately repeating what you hear sentence by sentence for short periods. It deeply integrates listening and speaking, really locking in comprehension and pronunciation patterns.
Then a final summary challenge to tie skills together.
Yes. Listen to a 5-minute authentic audio clip, like a news report or podcast segment. Then challenge yourself to write a concise 100-word summary using some of that advanced vocabulary you've been learning. This combines listening, synthesis, and active vocabulary use. Do final drills. A final time management drill, pushing through each part under pressure, no pausing or rewinding allowed, and a final vocabulary recheck. Quickly review all your lists, maybe even create some IELTS-style questions using those words for yourself.
And for day 29, the day before.
The guide suggests doing the final full mock test, ideally under the most realistic conditions you can manage. Full test, headphones, timer, proper answer sheet, no pauses, treat it as the ultimate dress rehearsal.
And day 30, the day right before the test, what's the advice?
Relax. Do some light listening only if you want maybe a movie or music in English. Quickly review your strategy cheat sheet, but don't cram vocabulary or do heavy practice. Prioritize sleep, eat well, stay healthy. The hard work is done. Now it's about being rested and confident. Don't cram.
That's such a comprehensive, well-structured plan. It really seems to cover all the angles, from micro skills to overall strategy and mindset.
And the guide includes bonus content too, just to reinforce things. It revisits those advanced vocabulary words like allocate, inevitable, tentative, reinforce, alleviate, ambiguous, consensus, detrimental, facilitate, emphasizing their importance, especially in the academic sections. And it suggests practicing with realistic conversation scenarios, like dialogues about university course registration, which are perfect practice for part one, focusing on picking out those key details like course names, student IDs, schedule clashes, and final choices under pressure.
So to reiterate the big picture, getting a high IELTS score, like aiming for band 8 or 9,
Right.
even if your general English is strong, it's really about deeply understanding the test's specific format, its quirks and common pitfalls. It's about combining that test intelligence with targeted, consistent, active practice focused on your weak spots.
Exactly. Our strategic mantra from the guide could be plan, practice Polish. Plan your approach, especially for writing and speaking parts. Practice consistently, simulating timed conditions. And polish your work, always review, check for errors, refine your understanding and technique.
And for resources, remember the official Cambridge IELTS practice books are invaluable. Channels like IELTS Liz on YouTube offer great free tips. The British Council has a prep app, and there are specific resources online for drilling, writing techniques, or pronunciation.
That's right, the tools and the knowledge are definitely out there. Now it's about applying them consistently and strategically in your preparation. You absolutely can improve significantly with this kind of focused approach.
And maybe a final thought to leave you, the listener, with. As you get better at understanding different accents specifically for the test, how does that also change how you connect with people globally in real life? How might it enrich those real-world conversations beyond just passing an exam? What other tiny clues in spoken English tone, intonation, word choice might open up even more understanding for you? Consider that getting a high score isn't just about English. It's also about performing under pressure, understanding the rules of the game, and actively avoiding those common pitfalls through smart, dedicated practice.
So, reflecting on everything we've unpacked today from this guide, what specific part or maybe technique feels most relevant to your current preparation stage? And how can you take just one new thing from this discussion and start using it